Tremendous notice is when, after just a few weeks of, I guess, rehearsal and previews, he took over as King Arthur in Camelot, which is at the Pantages Theater until June 7th. Would you welcome, please, Richard Harris. In Camelot. That's a lovely song, isn't it? In Camelot.
It is.
Says a lot, says a lot.
Beautiful.
I want to find out first, before we take... First of all, it's good to see you again.
Thank you so much.
Time.
You too.
What happened the other night? I read where you were in a scene where you were praying to God. All of a sudden, there was a scream. According to the papers, it was the stage manager's wife.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, some scenery was being lowered, about 1,000 or 2,000 pounds of scenery, coming right down on you. What happened?
Well, what happened really was that they had it. It was in the original production, Richard Burton's one, right?
Right.
And they found it too dangerous, because he was in pain. He was in great pain in his back. And they found it too dangerous to do for him to do. So they cut it, but when they showed it to me in the rehearsals, I said, I can do that. I'd like to do that. And what it really is, of course, is that I have been manipulated into allowing Lancelot and Guinevere to be alone in the castle without me, you see?
Right.
So I get sort of perplexed that they won't be chased, shall we say, right? So I rush back the stage, and the scenery's all changing. I have to, at a certain spot, go on my knees and pray to God that they would be chased. Right. So, of course, I went on my knees, and I heard a shout, and I looked up, and I found I was being chased.
And the scenery is...
200 pounds of scenery, or 2,000 pounds.
Now, were you
it was rushing in my head, down to my head.
Did the audience see you at this time as you're...
Oh, they did, Jan. They did see, and they must have heard the screaming, because as soon as I looked up very, very quick, and I saw this thing hurtling down to my head, unfortunately, the stage manager couldn't reverse the decision to drop it, and he spotted me in the monitor not being in the right place. And of course I looked up and I heard the screaming going. I looked up and I saw it come down, so I hurled myself back like a bolt of lightning and landed on my bottom.
Yeah.
But that was all right. God heard my prayers.
Yes. What does that do to the audience in a dramatic moment like that? Did you continue right on with
they went on. Well, luckily enough, that's the end of the scene.
That was a curtain then?
Yes. No, it segues into a scene between Lancelot and Guinevere, you see. So they just carried on, I guess. I was so busy picking myself up and...
Yeah. You gotta believe in fate sometimes, don't you?
Well, I thought it was a case of Harris replaces Burton, no Tool replaces Harris.
Replacing Richard Burton, of course, is not easy. He's been on the road with that a long time. You did, of course, Camelot on the movie, but that was, what, 14, 15 years ago?
15 years ago, yeah.
By the way, if Richard Burton is watching tonight, he had some surgery, I guess, on the cervical disc in his neck or something. If he happens to be watching, we hope he get well soon, because that's a very unpleasant thing to go through.
Yeah, I'll join you.
Hurt like hell, so
I wish him the best.
If he happens to be watching, we hope he get well soon.
He's out of hospital. He's at home recuperating, and the successful operations. That's wonderful.
So they came to you and they said, how would you like to do Camelot? Now, what was your first reaction?
No.
Really?
Absolutely not. And then he requested it, because I became a great friend of his.
Was it because you thought that following his particular interpretation would be difficult critically?
He has been so definitively attached to it.
Yeah.
He was so wonderful, and the reviews were so extraordinary. All except here, where he was really ill here.
Yeah, I understand. He was suffering.
He got bad reviews here, but I think they made up for it afterwards, because they knew, they were kind of embarrassed, because they found out after he was very ill, and he didn't want to tell them he was ill, because he's an old pro. But he's got such reviews.
Did he talk you into it?
He did, yeah. And I thought at one stage it was kind of dangerous for me to follow him, because he's an extraordinary actor. I mean, he's the world's best actor. And to follow him in something...
He's remarkable. I saw him in Equus on Broadway.
Wonderful, a real tour de force. Wonderful. And of course, the stage... I think for
You're not exactly chopped liver yourself, you know. You're a mighty skilled actor yourself.
Thank you. But then, you see, what happened then was he didn't want the show to close.
Right.
Because he's such an old pro, and he loved the company. And they'd have to close 8 weeks before. And he didn't want that to happen, so he asked me to come in and step in for the 8 weeks.
How much time did you have to really
well, you ready? We had 8 5-hour rehearsals with the cast, and...
That's not much time.
7 2.5 hours.
That's really that's not much time,
No, I think 15 days. Really 15 half days.
Were you really ready on opening night?
No.
Did you feel...
Not at all.
Did you go up at any time?
Everything we went up.
Did the audience know?
No, they didn't know, no.
You see, that's a nice thing about that, unless people are so familiar. If you were doing, say, Hamlet, where people are really aficionados, you miss one word.
Forget it.
And but in something like this, where they're not familiar with the total script, you can go up on a line and probably read your way through it.
Would whisper, you're on the wrong mark, or they give you a quick cue. And the little boy who plays Tom of Warwick is beautiful, because he's got these huge big eyes, you see. And I didn't...
You have a prompter?
Oh, no, but I wouldn't use one.
You wouldn't?
No, no, I came from a theater.
Prompter, if you don't know what that is sometimes they have them in an opera very often, or the guy who's down a little box and will cue the actors if necessary.
Yeah.
But in most stage shows, they don't do that.
We don't know. I wouldn't do that.
You want to hear my famous prompter story?
Yeah.
I've told this before, but it's so good. It was a cartoon in the New Yorker magazine. Showed a guy on stage, as Hamlet. And you saw the prompter with a script, and he is saying up to the actor, or not to be.
Oh, no. I know, come on.
My favorite cartoon.
Did you ever hear the great word of Charlie Lawson? Charlie Lawson was in Stratford. He was playing Lear in Stratford, and he was doing marvelously and got wonderful reviews. And one night, he totally dried in a big speech, and he stopped. And he said to the audience, well, do you believe it? He said, I have dried. Dried. He said, prompt, please, line, please. And the line came in. He said, no, no, not there, dear fellow. He said, go back to the beginning of the speech. Let's do it all from the beginning. And, of course, he said, do you mind? The audience gave him a big applause. And the same thing happened to me in my very, very first show here.
It's probably the best way to handle it,
It is, yeah.
Is to be honest with the audience
Yeah.
and say, I've gone up or I forgot the line. Look at them, take them into your confidence and do it.
Yeah, well, I did it strange. And there was a guy who was playing Mordred in this show who played it for 10 months. And it was my first preview. I snuck into a preview. We announced it just before the show.
Right.
I was going to do a matinee preview. And I actually hung up on a line. And I looked at him and I thought, well, come on. Give us a cue. Give us something to the actor, right? He looked terrified. So I looked at the audience and I said, well, it's my first day. It's my first show. I'm bound to forget something. I said, wait a minute. I said, give me the line, please. They gave me the line. And I said to the audience, do you mind if we start the scene again from the beginning? They cheered, of course. And they
That's
loved
great.
that.
That's really great. Because
I gave a little courtesy to them and a blessing.
if you try to work out of it, then it gets more involved
it gets
and more
worse.
involved.
Oh, it gets worse.
Hey, we're going to be back in just a second. Got a lot of things to talk about. Stay where you are. We're talking about reviews. I read that Richard Burton once says he never reads reviews.
Yes, he did.
I always find that difficult, that an actor doesn't want to, if it's good, read it. I guess his philosophy was, if it's good, you tend to believe it, and if it's bad, it only makes you angry.
It makes you angry, yeah. He did it. He told me a story, actually, in New York, that when he got the reviews in New York, which was unbelievable, that he didn't want to read them. But Susan was ringing up her mother to Kenya someplace to read the reviews out. So Richard was listening at the door to overhear what they were like.
Just a little bit.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, when he heard something like extraordinary, he just said, this is one of the good. Disappeared.
You've had a lot of great reviews in your life, and most actors remember the worst thing that's ever been said. What's the worst review, or somebody who's really zinged you on something?
Oh, God, I got a lot of bad ones. Rex Reed makes a habit of knocking me.
Well. You have to remember the source.
But I got some really bad ones. But I think the bad ones are always the best. They're the ones you always remember best, I think.
Yeah.
The ones that I got. What used to annoy me when I was in England, actually, was that I remember when I did Sporting Life first, and I won the Cannes Film Festival Award. I remember coming back to England, and there was a headline on the English newspaper that said, English actor, British actor wins major award in Cannes, And the following night, I got into a punch-up in a bar, and it said, Irish actor in Broad.
In other words, when you're good, you're English, and when you're bad, you're Irish.
When you're bad, you're Irish, yeah.
You've had a reputation, along with a few other actors from overseas. Burton, known as a pretty good crouser at one time. Peter O'Toole, roused pretty good. You had a reputation, and I at one time had a fairly good reputation, going out on the town and having frivolity. Have you mellowed a little bit now?
Yeah, I think a little.
Is raising hell different now than it was 20
Well, I tell you, I passed it on. I passed the crown on to somebody else. I've got a young son, 16. And I was in the Bahamas about 9 months ago, and I got a phone call from Kensington Police Station in London. Okay? And they said, hello, Mr. Harris, this is Sergeant Connery here. He said, I've got a guest here tonight. He said, I think it's your son. He said, he doesn't know how to explain to you a certain problem he has with us here. He said, but maybe he ought to explain it himself. Hello, Dad. How are you? I said to him. And he said, Dad, didn't you tell me that you were arrested 4 times? And you spent 4 nights or 4 different times in Kensington jail? I said, yes. He said, the score is 4-1.
You can't get too angry. No. You can't get too angry.
No, you can't. What can you do about that? You've got to adore him, huh?
Obviously, it was nothing serious.
No.
Just a little...
He's a policeman. Something like that.
Well...
I used to do that in London. I always had a nose, like, for an opening night, or a picture came up, or a play. I never used publicity firms before, because I used to always do it myself. And the rumour went around London, didn't it? And then they said, you notice every night Richard Harris has got an opening night. He hits a policeman the night before. He gets headlines in the papers. And it came to a stage in London when policemen would ring up and say, just let us know, what's the night of your opening? Because we're signing off that
We're going to get off the street.
We'll get off the streets, yeah.
Is this what happened? Now, you've told me before, we talked about this. You've broken the beak a number of different times.
9.
9 times?
Yeah.
Was that always involved in...
Well, it was fights and football and falling down places and standing up places.
Yeah.
Scenery hitting me on the head or whatever. But yeah, 9 times. I think I told you on the show before, 9 times.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
I couldn't believe it.
I'll show you this. This is true.
What is this, your old nose?
No, this is it.
Oh, I like
See that there, look? See that?
Yeah.
Scar there?
Yeah.
Well, that's my nose.
That's what
They took the bone out of there and put it in there.
Are you putting me on?
No, I promise you. I think the last time on the show I told you that every time somebody kissed my nose, they didn't know how close they got to it. Tell them a ghost.
It must be awful to drop your pants to blow your nose. Weird.
Oh, God.
Did you, are you playing, there's a picture, Bo Derek is in a picture called, I guess they're redoing Tarzan the Apes, right?
Yeah, Tarzan the Ape Man, yeah.
Which was the original name of the Tarzan book, Tarzan of the Apes. You play now, is this correct? Bo Derek's father in Tarzan of the Apes.
Yeah.
Tell me about this.
Well, it's remarkable, I must say. Remarkable.
You know, when you read press now and stuff in the magazines, you read all of the stuff that went on in that picture, and they make it sounded like it was an absolute madhouse.
Oh, it was.
People demanding this, demanding that, a lot of personality conflicts, and when I read that stuff, I say,
well,
90% of it is not true.
Well, some of it might be true, because what he actually did, Derek directed it, you know, and he was one of the best directors I've ever worked with in my life.
He's married to Bo Derek.
To Bo Derek, and he's a remarkable man. But he insisted doing it his own way.
Now, what did that mean?
Well, that really means that the budget originally was $10 to $12 million. So he said he could do it for $6, and I thought he was crazy.
That's very inexpensive
He did
nowadays.
it for $4.5. So what he would do is he just cut out all the fat, all the waste, the money waste making movies today. The cost of living is going up, making movies, the cost is going up. But he reduced it and took it down to nothing and made it the right way with a small crew. Of course, there were conflicts with the people who made them for years, made the movies a certain way for years. He had his own way of doing it, and he did it, and he brought it miraculously way under budget and way under time.
Now,
and she produced it.
She played Jane?
She plays Jane, yeah.
Who plays Tarzan?
Well, a man called Miles O'Keefe. He's new. She's first. But
and you played Tarzan's father?
I'd say her father.
Her father, because in the original book, he did not know who his parents were.
That's right.
I remember back in my childhood reading the original one. He had been stranded or orphaned on this island. Lord Greystone.
That's
Lord
right.
and Lady Greystone, of course.
But
he never knew that, did he?
No. But we had a great time doing it because in the picture, you see, Bo Derek, who plays my daughter, is the image of my wife, who is dead. So every time I look at Bo, I haven't seen her since she was 1 year of age. Every time I look at her, of course, I have these incestuous feelings towards her. Which is not too difficult.
No, that's Bo Derek. No method acting there.
No, not at all, no. All the frame of reference was right there. Right on. Right in my nose.
Is there a...
She's wonderful. And she really, this is true, she produced that picture.
She really is that?
There was no such thing as line producers or associate producers. She did it to a dot. I'll tell you a wonderful story, but I'm sure she won't mind my telling you. One day she said to me, she rang me up, she said, Richard, she said, do you use the air conditioner in your car? I said, I don't know why. She said, well, she said, I'll tell you why. She said, because the driver of your car, I know exactly how long it takes to get from your hotel to location and how many gallons per mile your car does. And the driver is conning me out of 2 gallons. So when I questioned the driver said, well, it's because Richard Harris uses the air conditioner and that takes up to 2 extra gallons. But she checked that out. She checked everything out. It was remarkable.
No wonder they brought the picture. They wanted you to come in an unair-conditioned car? Star of your magnitude with no
we did everything. I was makeup.
Where did you shoot this?
We did it in Sri Lanka and the Seychelles.
Yeah.
It's a super film. Apparently it's wonderful. And he's great. He's wonderful. He's going to make a big breakthrough.
How long will you be here at the Pantages now in Camelot?
Till June 7th.
June 7th. And are you going to now continue on the road?
Well, we're going to go to... they're trying to get a theater for Broadway. If we go to Broadway, then we'll take the show on the road to fill in. Broadway will be October.
Yeah.
So we'll go on the road to Boston, Washington, I think, Seattle, Atlanta, I think, and then go into Broadway.
It's the kind of a show, it's a classic that can play forever, and people, of course, who've seen it go back to see Camelot like they go back to see any of the great musicals, whether it's West Side or Oklahoma or any of them.
Yep,
They never grow old. Hey, it's great to have you here. I know you got a show tonight.
Yeah. You got to come?
I'm going to see you before you go.
Oh, do. Come and see it. It's really wonderful.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you very much.
Give me a call. I like him. I like him. He's a nice man. No illusions, no pretense.
No.
And a fine actor. We'll be back with Mary Hartley.